Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Byron Nungo, and I'll be your organizer for the session. And with me today is Calvin Botos. I have a short video I'd like to play before handing over to our presenter.
Occupational health and safety is not only enforced through legislation, but also critical for the sustainability of society, our economy, and the environment. TMP Magazine offers you convenient and easy access to information about occupational health and safety, especially for the skilled trades industry, right at your fingertips. Stay healthy and stay safe by staying informed. TMP Magazine, available on App Plumber or at www.themasterplumber.co.za.
Thank you very much. That's it from my side, and I'd like to hand over to our presenter.
Cool. So good morning. I'm doing a presentation on plastic multi-layered pipe, the advantages of using multi-layered pipe in plumbing. It's not going to be a very long presentation. It's not going to be one of those like pots out with techno music type of presentation. I just want to go over the basics, the advantages and things of multi-layered pipe, and I'll be talking through most of the presentation. So in this presentation, I'm going to be covering multi-layered pipe history, what a multi-layered pipe is, the different connecting systems, pros and cons, certification, installation guidelines, tooling, and then afterwards we'll have questions and answers. But first, who I am and why I'm giving this presentation. So let me take a moment to just chat about myself. I am the KZN specifications rep for Sunridge. And Sunridge is the largest independently owned importer and wholesaler of piping and plumbing supplies throughout Southern Africa. We hold a license for the Rifo, Acatherm, as well as Neiman Tools, LeVay, Sandweb, Boris Taps, and many more. And obviously, you can find out more by Googling Sunridge. You'll still see our webpage is Sunridge Wholesalers and Importers, but we've changed the name to just Sunridge. All right. So multi-layered pipes have been used for approximately 50 years, where the guys have tried to find alternative uses and alternative ways of plumbing buildings. Copper obviously has its disadvantages, but it is a traditional one that is used. So they came up with multi-layered pipes to, bring less friction into the piping wall, to, stop water hemorrhage, to find ways of extending pipes to making much longer pipes. And the research and development has been ongoing for a very long time. That being said, it gives us a lot of opportunity. It's given us a lot of opportunity for trial and error. So currently at the moment, multi-layered pipe is sitting at a point where we've actually got it down to, call it a T, pun intended on the plumbing side. But yes, the multi-layered pipe has gone from strength to strength, and I can only see it improving in the future with new technology coming out, new composites, new plastics and things that we'd be able to put into it, as well as new various metals that we can use. So what is a multi-layer pipe? A multi-layer pipe is a composite pipe built up of different layers. The aluminium core layer of a multi-skin allows the pipe to maintain its form. When it is bent into shape, the internal inserts or the pert layers are more resistant to corrosion than the metallic counterparts. So what this means is you're getting much better flow rates. You're getting no build-up of minerals or corrosion on the inside of the pipe. You're not getting the standard calcification, as well as a much longer lifespan on your pipe. And there's various other pros and cons, but I'll get into that in a moment. Okay, so if you have a look at the picture that I'm showing over here, you can see a polyethylene aluminium composite pipe. Now, a PAP pipe or Pexalpex pipe is a 5-layer structure consisting of an inner and outer layers of polyethylene, a middle layer of longitudinally welded aluminium pipe. So basically what that means is the aluminium pipe wraps around the inner layer and then is welded at the top. Various companies use various layers or various methods of welding. And obviously depending on the company, depending on the weld, depends on the quality of the pipe too. So as you can see, polyethylene on the outside, a glue layer, welded aluminium, layer of glue, bonding layer adhesives that bonds aluminium together, and then another layer of polyethylene on the inside. Some use extruded polyethylene. Some of the time it's a cross-woven polyethylene. I do know that if you Google various ways of manufacturing Pexalpex pipe, you will see a variation of ways that they do it, from something that looks like a spider on cocaine to something that looks like just the pipe extruded going out. So you get various types of multi-layered pipe. You get an HDPE, aluminium HDPE pipe. We don't really get those very often in the country. Then you get the pipe, B pipe, which is a PERT-L-PERT, and this is a polyethylene with a raised temperature resistance. So it is a single layer extruded pipe as well. And then you get the PEX LPEX, which is the cross-woven polyurethane. And that's the one where it looks like everything is basically welded together in a multi-layered, multi-threaded pipe, which then brings out a very strong layer of piping on it. Cool. So you also get different connection options. So as you can tell, there are more ways to skin a cat than, is traditionally used. I've got over here a plastic connection. You get the DZR brass connections with the stainless steel crimping over the top of it, which is your crimp connections. The two of them are crimp connections. And then you also get a compression connection, which is quite favored in the industry. I do know that judging by what we're seeing in the industry in terms of numbers, the crimp systems as well as the compression systems, the crimp system is being used a lot in your higher value areas. So your new builds in estates, and I know in Cape Town they're using the compression system more than anything else. They seem to favor it over there. Both have their pros and cons. So let's have a look at some pros and cons of multi-layered pipe. Now, because a multi-layered pipe comes in a roll, so you've got a 200 meter, 100 meter, 50 meter roll of pipe, you're using a lot less connections. Traditionally with copper, you're going to have a connection every 6 meters, every 5 meters. If you're doing a long run, then you've got to basically weld, or put good compression. And that obviously leads to a rise in the cost because, if you're using a compression fitting, then it's expensive. If you're using a more your cheap Delcop type fittings, then you've got a lot of flux, solder, and time that it takes. But if you're using a multi-layered pipe, you basically unroll it to the length that you need to do and then put minimal fittings in. So there's a lot fewer connections in a multi-layered pipe. Given to the fact that multi-layered pipe also has got zero memory, you're also able to eliminate a lot of the elbows in a section. So you can run a pipe and bend the pipe into the various sections that you needed to. And typically every connection will have 2 connections, one at the start and one at the end. Unless you have to get into like a really, really sharp L bend. And in which case you can then just use your normal elbow fittings. But there's also minimal tooling involved. Now, I'm not a plumber. I am in marketing of the side of things. So obviously getting the correct terminology and the tooling type of things right is quite a challenge for me. But from what I can tell, most plumbers carry around torches, flux, and lead solder to do the copper fittings. And those things are constantly needing to be replaced. So there's always a turnover of tooling where the guys are then having to buy solder, having to buy flux, having to buy gas, and have it on site at all times. If one of those are not there, then there's obviously a delay. Delay means money because time is money, and generally becomes a problem. So I've often been in plumbing stores where the plumber's running around and runs in and goes, listen, dude, I need solder and gas like now. The guys didn't tell me that they'd run out on site. With the multi-layered tooling, as you can guess, I'm traditionally the rifing rep. And what this means is I do try to push rifing, but for this presentation, I'm sticking to multi-layer. I'm not going to, go off on a sales pitch for rifing. But with the multi-layered piping, I see that there's a lot less tooling involved. You need a cutter, a reamer, and a crimper. Depending on the size of type, depends on the type of crimper that you'd use. But traditionally, those 3 tools are all that you would need to be able to do a full installation with a crimp system. With the compression system, it's 2 spanners, a shift or 2 shifting spanners, or just the 2 correct spanners. There's also a better heat retention on the thermal properties. Now, I've got copper pipes in my walls at the house my home, and I can feel the shower from origin all the way to the head based on where the pipe is in the wall. And I can only imagine that is making life a little bit more expensive in terms of heating, because I'm having to heat a lot more water because the cement actually draws it out. With a multi-layered pipe system, because of the thermal properties of the PEX or the PERD, it means that you're able to have less insulation value or less insulation on your piping. You have a lot less heat loss on your pipe, which according to the new 10-400 rules means that you're able to actually save on your water heating, because there isn't as much water heating. The water arrives at your tap hotter than it would if it was in a traditional type of piping situation. Now in South Africa, one of the things that I've noticed, and one of the things the plumbers are smiling about that have converted over to a multi-layered pipe, is the fact that it's got a very low scrap value. I have had contractors who contact me years after contacting them in the first place, saying that they'd like to switch over to multi-layered pipe because they are just absolutely gutful of having pipes stolen out their walls. One of the bigger projects down on the south coast, I know that the guys had to replace the piping 3 times because our local people of a narcotic affluence, I suppose that's a way to euphemize it, the Wonga guys have basically jumped over the fence every night, stolen copper pipes out the walls, and every morning they rock up and they had to then replace piping. Insurance was an absolute nightmare. And after the 3rd time of this, insurance basically allowed them to use a multi-layered pipe in there. I'm not going to mention which project it is, but it is a prominent one. The other nice thing about the multi-layered pipe is due to the fact that it runs in a coil, you basically purchase a large round batch of piping. It's very easy to transport. I see some plumbing companies have literally gone to a point where they're not using buckies anymore, but they're using their wife's sedan on a bad day, where they can load the pipe and the tooling and everything into the car and just transport it as is. Not having to have roof racks, not having to strap everything down. Also not having to worry about driving through city centers with copper pipes strapped to their roof, and obviously the theft point of their, comes up again. So the ease of transport, the low scrap value is a big advantage in South Africa. In certain producers of multi-layered pipe, there's also a built-in quality assurance where you'll be able to tell if the pipe is crimped or if it is properly sealed by seeing various markers on it. Now, this isn't across the board, but it is a topic which is very, in certain multi-layered pipes, speak to the manufacturers and they'll tell you, but there is built-in quality assurance and built-in peace of mind into the actual system itself. And, the last one I'm going to touch on is the fact that it's very cost-effective. Now, a lot of plumbers have taken me on about this in terms of the cost-effectiveness of it, but multi-layered pipes are generally much cheaper than traditional copper and a lot quicker to install. That, obviously, time-saving is a money-saving, but at the same time, because you're not doing fittings every 5 meters, you're using a lot less connections, and the less connections you use, the less connections you need to buy. And then with that, you obviously have a fund saving. We have noticed on the rifling pipe, we're actually saving up to about 60% on certain installations and about 30% on most of your domestic installations compared to other multi-layered piping systems. But the cost savings have been huge. I did the exercise where I plumbed a bathroom for a friend, and the saving that we did by switching to the multi-layered pipe versus the traditional copper pipe, we managed to save enough for the registered plumber to purchase his own tool set to run with the multi-layered piping system throughout. And that was on one bathroom. The saving was about 3,000 Rand. And he was able to then switch to multi-layered pipe from there. And every bathroom that he does going forward will be a saving for him and increase his overall margins, which was quite cool. The 3 cons I'd like to sort of touch on is the specialized tooling. So yes, in terms of specialized tooling, you do need the system's particular tool. I do know that every system has its own set of tools, unless you're using the compression fittings, and this is mainly for the crimp fittings with the tooling side of thing. You do need to make sure that you have the right tool or the right tools for the system. If you're using I'm just going to mention a couple of names. If you're using the rifling system, you need the rifling tool. If you're using the MEPLA system, you need the MEPLA tool. If you're using compression systems, you need the compression, just the spanners and things. But on the crimp systems, tooling is very, very important. The tooling actually is part of your guarantee and warranty. If you're using the correct tools, you will then obviously get the correct warranties for it. Availability. So the uphill battle that I fight on a constant is making sure that a lot of the merchants are stocking the multi-layered systems and the correct multi-layered systems. I do know you can buy multi-layered pipe and compression fittings in most plumbing stores. Some guys are still very traditional and are holding on to the copper, but the market is turning around and multi-layered systems are becoming more and more available on the market, which then brings me to my next point, is that there are many uncertified cheap products on the market. So you can pick up a multi-layered pipe at next to very, very cheap. I'm not going to say the actual figures because I've gotten conflicting reports on what they actually are, but there are so many imported products that are subpar. Now, as we all know, you can go to China and you can take a multi-layered pipe and say, please make this for me, but make it much cheaper. And the Chinese guys have got a work ethos where they're able to do that, but then they cut down on the materials. So knowing that there are a lot of really cheap options available, and the cheap options, unfortunately, are a issue in the industry, because if a plumber uses a cheap option that is uncertified, untested, and unregulated, that could lead to quite a lot of problems down the line. I'm sure anybody who's had a pipe leak and destroy a carpet or a ceiling or a paint job knows that it is expensive to fix leaks, not just the leak itself, but the actual aftermath of it. Cool. Certification is something that I do want to touch on quite not in depth, but I want to make sure that there is an understanding of the certification process in terms of piping. Now, to be sure that a multi-layered pipe system that you're using is certified, SATIS approved, as well as SABS or ANOR certification, or ANOR, a certification must be provided. If you are purchasing a multi-layered pipe that says it has a certification, please insist on seeing the actual certificate. If you're doing a new build in a house, I know very often there's a guarantee and a warranty that the owner of the home insists on. So we want to make sure that you can obviously add that certification too. Now, certification is often required for new buildings. I know I print certificates like it's coming out of my ears to make sure that the new houses that we do have got that on file. And it's also, often required for insurance and then occupancy on your much larger buildings. There have been cases where insurance will not pay out if a pipe bursts or if there's damages to a pipe if it is not a certified SABS product. If you have a look at the picture that I'm got, and you have to sort of move my video thing, you see my eyes change direction too. So if you have a look at this pipe example over here, you've got the Rifing ANOR. Now, ANOR is a Spanish testing authority which has been commissioned by is commissioned to do testing on behalf of SABS. So SABS, as we all know, is a organization that can't do testing. I don't want to go too much into that, but they have then obviously linked up with ANOR and various testing organizations around the world to make sure that there is a tested product available to the market. Often bills of quantity on your larger buildings will say SABS or SATIS approved. Now, SATIS is another authority that vets testing in the country. So if you have a pipe that says ANOR or SATIS or SABS, make sure that you can get a corresponding certificate that you can give your clients at the end of the day to make sure that if there is an insurance claim on it, that the plumber is covered. Things that you need to look out for on your certification is obviously the ISO 21003. That is a manufacturing regulation or a manufacturing, and we do these things early in the morning. Basically, the ISO 21003 ensures that the manufacturing processes follow due process and make sure that the pipe is manufactured according to what it is tested to be manufactured to. So that is a very stringent testing and ongoing testing that is done in most of the factories that happen, and most of the factories that produce the pipe, and that testing is obviously kept going so that if you can see that there is the UNE-EN ISO 21003 certification on the pipe, that the pipe is manufactured to the standard, which is then held by the ANOR certification. So it's a very important thing to have in there. And then obviously making sure that on the pipe it is also printed that it is a class 2 10 bar. New regulations, and I'm sure Steve will take a more detailed approach to the regulation that is required in South Africa. But class 2 10 bar means that you're able to withstand most or all municipal lines. Now, most municipal lines will be able to take you to, call it 6 bar, 8 bar, sometimes if there's a spike, 12 bar. But we want to make sure that we are testing and we are having a pipe that can withstand surges in pressure. Now, the class 2 10 bar means that you'll be able to actually test this pipe up to about 12 to 20 bar. And we've done the tests on the system that I rep for, and we've taken it up to 80 bar. It is actually very, very strong. So multi-layered pipes are much stronger. But yes, I see there's a question, and I'll get to it at the end of the presentation, which is coming up quite quickly. So making sure that your multi-layered pipes are class 2 10 bar and that they can reach a maximum temperature. They're certified to take a maximum temperature of 95 degrees Celsius. that means that you are within the allowable parameters of new buildings and obviously country regulations. Cool. Now, the installation guidelines are pretty straightforward with most multi-layered systems. As you can see over here, the cutting is important, the reaming and the chamfering of the edges is important, and then obviously inserting your inserts and your connections are very important. So I'm not going to go too much into detail of this, but basically you need to make sure that you're using the correct tooling, and this is on the crimp system, that you're using the correct tooling for the system that you're using. It's very important that there is always the manufacturer's guidelines are adhered to. If you are using a combination of tools, it's kind of difficult to make sure that your guarantees and warranties are in place, because as I said, guarantees and warranties are set in place by the system, and the system's tooling, I'm going to use the words for rifing, the rifing tools need to be used. For MEPLA, the MEPLA tool needs to be used. For compression, the correct inserts need to be used for the compression system that you're going for. So as you can see there are the two various options where you can cut always at a 90-degree angle because that needs to fit comfortably against the baffle. Always chamfering because the chamfer allows the O-rings to be inserted without moving or damaging them. You can even put a little bit of a lubrication on it, and then inserting the pipe connection all the way to the end of the pipe connection to the baffle or to your witnesses, depending on the system that you're using, making sure that you can see that the pipe is connected properly, and then obviously crimping with the correct tool, because the correct tool will make sure that you're getting the correct Newton meterage into the crimp itself to make sure that it will hold. And then obviously on the compressions is making sure that you have got an insert. Now the inserts are the places where the compression fittings generally fail, because very often an insert is left out, the pipe then leaks and there's delamination on the inside of the pipe because of it. But following the correct procedure there is important. Cool. Now on the tooling, there are many various options available depending on the system you choose to use. Be sure that the correct tool for the correct system, you're using the correct tool for the correct system that you're having. Never use anything but the recommended pipe cutter for your chosen system. Now this is vitally important. This is something that often happens on site where a pipe cutter goes missing and then somebody comes up with an angle grinder or a hacksaw or a wood saw to cut the pipe. The problem with this is, and generally the issue that happens on sites for this, is the fact that the pipe itself, if you're using a hacksaw, there is a chance that there will be a sliver left out over there, and with the sliver leaving out, it sometimes compromises the seal. If the pipe is not cut to a complete 90 degrees, there's often a chance that the pipe won't seal correctly because it is missing a point against the baffle. So please always use the correct cutter, either one of the press cutters or your normal pipe cutter or your wheeled copper pipe cutter. Not too sure what the correct name is. I've heard it called many things, but you'll always make sure that you're cutting the pipe with the correct tool. All right, always remember to ream the pipe as well. The reamers are an important part of the process. It basically chamfers the pipe. When you cut the pipe, sometimes the pipe does deform a little bit, so it's not completely round. Reaming the pipe, make sure that the pipe is rounded, make sure that there is a chamfered edge, make sure that the O-rings do go in and that you don't lose any traction on that you're able to make sure that the piping and everything is, the system is working completely. Cool. And when in doubt, call the manufacturer and ask for training. Every manufacturer that I've dealt with and that I've seen and I've competed with in the market has offered training on the systems. They'll either do training on site or we'll do training in our offices or in your offices. Training is always available for multi-layered systems, and if in doubt, make sure that the manufacturer allows for the training on that. Cool. As you can see, I've got various pictures of tools over here, from your manual pressing crimper all the way to the electronic. This is the Lehman tool that's available in the market now as well. With the electronic crimpers, they are large and small. The large one has got 60 Newton meters of torque in it. The small one's got 60 Newton meters of torque. The large one has got 32 Newton meters of torque, which allows for the crimping systems to work perfectly. And the tool will then obviously be attached to your guarantees and warranties. If you have a look at the cutters, there's a wheeled cutter and then obviously the reamers, which are quite important. And I hope I haven't gone over time, but thank you for your time today. Are there any questions? I'm going to have a look at the one that we have over here. Morning. This is coming from Emil. How does the product assurance work? If the pipe is faulty, do they just pay for pipe or for the whole exercise of taking the pipe out and walls and replacing? Cool. So on this question over here, Emil, the reality is, depending on the warranty attached to the pipe, And depending on the manufacturer and the supplier, depends on the warranty that you get. Some guys will, do I have to click answer live here? Some questions will be done, some warranties will not do that. That's why it's important to make sure that the piping system that you're using's warranty is in place. I know for Rifing, the company I work for, the warranty basically covers, if there is a fault on the pipe, the warranty covers reinstallation and making good. So it doesn't just, it's not just you go over there, see, okay, there's a problem with the pipe, fix the problem, and then be like, cool, you're on your own. The warranty would then cover the fact that it's got to be repaired, made well, and any damages associated with a faulty pipe. And that is obviously inspected by somebody on site, and we have got agents across the country that will then go for it. But again, vitally important that the system is followed so that the warranties are in place. Colin, I'm going to answer your question live as well. It says, I do not see suitable for outside in the sun. Now, Colin, the reality in this is that the pipes are suitable. They do have UV protection built into them on certain systems. Again, multi-layered pipes, depending on the manufacturer, depends on the UV resistance that's going to be in there. But it is always good to make sure that if you have got a pipe in the sun, that you do give it some sort of coating. I do know that a lot of guys would go for a lagged coating on the outside, but also a paint coating would just give it that extra protection. But as far as I am aware, most multi-layered pipe systems are able to be put in the sun. They just don't cover warranties for extended periods of sun exposure. I've done a few installations where the guys have actually put the pipe on a roof to clean solar panels, and it's full sun. But that being said, there are installations that I've seen where we've had a multi-layered pipe outside in the sun for 16 years and very, very little damage has come to the pipe. So much so that the guys literally just looked at the pipe and said, use exactly the same thing for the sun application. Richard, I see you say, okay, let's just say done. It is not approved for use outside. Richard, you are correct to a point. The pipes do have a UV protection in them, but most manufacturers do not warranty the pipe if it is left completely outside. There are points, but when in doubt, please just contact your manufacturer, and then the manufacturer will give you a written thing saying, well, yes, we will warranty the pipe outside, or we will approve the pipe to be used outside, or no, we will not. And then based on that, you can then make the decision. But again, if you're putting your pipe outside, it's always recommended to cover the pipe up with either a layer of paint or with a system. But most multi-layered pipes are able to be built into the wall, so there's very few times where the pipe is actually left exposed. I hope that answers the question, but there are approved multi-layered pipes for outside use. And as I said, if you'd like some more information about that, just drop me a message and I will be able to send you case studies or show you where pipes have been used outside in the past. Richard, please let me know if that does answer your question, if you'd like any further information. Cool. Any more questions?
Awesome. I think that is all the questions we can take for now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today, and have a blessed week.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.